and gentlemen, welcome to your WWE NXT Takeover San Antonio preview and predictions. This show has some very interesting matches on it. This is one of the most difficult takeover specials to predict in a really long time because of how much uncertainty there is as far as who's getting called up and who isn't and who's feuding with who, etc. So, John, what are your thoughts on this show?
Oh, brother, I'll tell you, first of all, I am feeling good. All right, we got two really exciting shows on paper coming up this weekend here. And, I know I've heard some people say, like, oh, San Antonio, it may be missing some of that pop. To me, I can understand that from one perspective, but from another, you know what? I'm looking forward to this card. I think this is actually a takeover, too, for my money, where I really like what the undercard in particular has going on. I think it's really strong there. Some matches I can't wait to see. A lot of you guys already know what those matches are. As far as the unpredictability, though, to hit on your initial point, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Even as we come upon this stage here to have this discussion, I'm still kind of waffling in my head on some of these matches, but this is going to be a preview of predictions where I really can't wait to hash it out with you. We may debate. We may share the same boat. Let's see what happens, brother.
All right, man. Well, I have the matches that have been announced in the description. I have them in order from, in my opinion at least to most important. And we can start things off with what I've perceived as the least important match on this card, Eric Young versus Ty Dillinger.
And you know something, like, this is already where it gets interesting, right? Because I am just going to come out and say it. I think Eric Young is going to win this match. I think Ty Dillinger is a guy that, I think he should win, just like I said at Toronto, right? He should get the win. But I think there is a longer, long-form storyline going on here. And I do think Ty Dillinger, much like a character like, say, Billie, is one predicated on struggle. And they really want you to feel that struggle. So I think Eric Young, with assistance from Sanity, specifically Killian Dane and, the rest of them, are going to cost Ty Dillinger this match. So I'm going to give Eric Young the win here, actually.
Yeah, I kind of had thoughts of, like, maybe they'll kind of do what they did against Jose and just show up and start attacking Ty Dillinger without even worrying about the ref seeing them and just getting Young disqualified for no reason. I feel like they kind of, like, if they do that more, it'll start to really feel played out and cliche. I agree with you. I'm going to go with Eric Young for the clean win. And really, it might not even be perfectly clean, but I don't think that they're going to have too many shenanigans because they really are giving Dillinger the struggle.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you there.
All right, that's interesting. We agree on that. Next, Roderick Strong versus Andrade Cien Almas.
Oh. You go first.
I'm really excited about this more than I am, so you take it away, brother.
Oh, I was going to give it to you because I started off this discussion, but all right. Yeah, I love that these two are working together. Granted, the story really doesn't have much teeth, but you know what? Not every story needs to. I think this story embodies the KISS method because it all started in that fatal four-way. Roderick Strong was the one that eliminated Andrade, and Andrade was the first one eliminated just overall in that match. He's feeling salty about it. He calls out Strong. And you know what? I normally don't like to do this on preview predictions. I like to hold myself to a higher standard. But you know what? This one time, because we're on the road to WrestleMania and I'm feeling good, I'm going to go purely what I want to happen. What do I think will happen if I'm being honest? I do think Roderick Strong will get the win. But you know what? I'm going to thumb my nose at that. I'm going to say Andrade Cien Almas gets the win because I really do believe in terms of NXT, this could be his year. I think him being a heel has just breathed a life into him that is just so beautiful to watch unfold. And hey, that's nothing against Roderick. We know what he can do. We know how great he is. He is phenomenal in there, and that's why I'm so looking forward to this match. I think you got two quality workers doing what they do. Nothing more than that. But I think, you know what? Based on the main event, I could see Andrade in a couple months really moving up the ranks and really making some noise about it. Who knows? But you know what? For now, I'm going Andrade for the win.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I'm also picking
Wow.
Andrade. That's so weird. But yeah, kind of noticed about NXT is that even though a lot of what they're doing over the last couple of years is starting to kind of trend more and more towards the main roster, the one trend that they haven't adopted yet that I hate about the main roster is how dominant baby faces are. On the main roster, baby faces are always either A, sort of outsmarted when they lose, or B, their opponent cheats when they lose. But the rest of the time, they win, and it's all clean. And I don't like how strong baby faces are portrayed on the main roster. I like credible heels, and NXT does credible heels way better than the main roster does. And I think that's kind of the last bastion of hope that I have for NXT. And because of that, I am picking Andrade. And I'm also going to pick Andrade to be the next challenger for the NXT Championship.
Oh, see, we're going to talk about that later for sure. But yeah, I can't believe you and I agree on that, because I even went with Andrade like, okay, now here comes Ashton being like, well, no, John, the rationality says about Roderick. I can't believe you and I agree on that, but that's a pleasant surprise because I love Andrade and I hope they strap a rocket to his freaking back. So good.
Yeah. Next, we have our third match of the night, and already we only had 5 matches announced for this card, so we're already getting into title matches. DIY versus the Authors of Pain, and since you've gone first for the last 2 picks, I will take this one. I am picking the Authors of Pain to take the titles off DIY. Biggest reason being, I don't think that NXT wants to have the Authors of Pain lose this early into their run. I think there are a lot of people citing political reasons for why the Authors of Pain might not win, whether it be, oh, WWE wants to punish them for, injuring that one guy on NXT TV, or, oh, the TM61 aren't going to be around for a long time, so they won't have opponents. But I genuinely think that NXT is going to go through with a push to the Authors of Pain to the moon. We'll get another AOP versus DIY match at NXT Takeover in Orlando, I believe is where WrestleMania is this year. And then I'm guessing we'll just have some kind of filler feud in between WrestleMania and SummerSlam, with SummerSlam having the return of TM61 to take on the Authors of Pain. I mean, let's remember, guys, the Ascension squashed jobbers for months. Competition in the NXT Tag Team division. I don't think that the Authors of Pain are far from that style of champions.
You know, it's funny, dude, because I'm picking up everything you're laying down, right? I mean, nothing you're saying really is inherently wrong. But I just can't agree. So this is our first disagreement of preview predictions. I'm actually thinking DIY will retain, and I am going to be that guy that invokes political reasons because I think TM61, it was dead in the water. I think them getting injured totally changed the landscape because honestly, I could see DIY retaining. Maybe either AOP gets a rematch or even Revival just after getting out of the title picture because they injured TM61 and they're looking, very ruthless and refocused. They may want to re-enter that territory. And hey, I mean, you're not going to get any complaints from me if we're going to have more DIY Revival matches. It's interesting to me that you cite the Ascension as kind of a precedent when, in my mind, that was so long ago, a lot like with the precedents that I cite. Well, that was so long ago or this time ago. I don't really know if that's the same NXT, if they would have that mindset. So I'm thinking they're not going to pull the trigger. I'm thinking DIY is going to retain.
And I would be perfectly fine with that. Maybe I'm trying too hard to kind of think that NXT is on the same level as Lucha Underground, in the sense that it should be really difficult for underdogs to keep the hold of the titles for a while. But
right.
I just have this gut feeling that WWE on the main roster want Gargano and Ciampa for the Cruiserweight division. And they might be sort of that missing element that really weights up from like a 6 to an 8 or a 9.
Right. I mean, and again, that logic isn't wrong to me. And if they do that, the cruiserweight division would be all the better for it. I don't know, man. Like, because I'll be perfectly honest with you. If Shane Thorne had not gotten injured and TM61 was healthy, this would be another agreement between us probably. Because I'd say, oh yeah, all day, every day, AOP is winning without question. But I can't with confidence say they're still going to win because I think that injury, no injury ever exists in a vacuum, right? It's always going to have reverberations. It's always going to have consequences. And I just think the consequence here is that the AOP push gets delayed. I think DIY are going to hang on to the titles. If I'm wrong, hey, great. You know, I'm still good on AOP despite the mishaps they've had. I still think there is an upside there. It's just, the curse of being both developmental and a brand, as we've talked about extensively. I just don't think it's their time. So DIY for the win.
It's so funny because I feel like at this time last year, we had one of the deepest tag team divisions in the world on NXT. And now I am genuinely struggling to name a credible tag team past the Revival and DIY. So, like, we've gone from having one of the deepest divisions to now we're basically just 3 teams deep, and that's it. That's so shallow.
Yeah, man. I mean, I see people in the chat mentioning Sanity, and they could certainly make a run if DIY does retain. Because that's even, I think the pool, in my opinion, becomes even shallower if AOP wins. Because the only baby
team I would love to see get pushed to a feud with AOP over the summer.
Who's that?
His name Axel Tucker and Otis Dozovic.
Oh, those guys. Yeah, they actually have a good look. If they
Heavy Machinery, that's what they're called. Heavy Machinery.
Okay, wow. All right. I could dig it. Certainly.
See them as they're like NXT's War Machine. I would love to see them built as baby faces take on the Authors of Pain in a freaking takeover match. That would be an amazing match. And I don't even think the Authors of Pain are that good, but that match has me drooling right now. Sounds amazing.
It really does. And I think with proper writing and booking of the opposition, Heavy Machinery, they could look like a really credible threat against AOP. So I guess that does kind of fix the shallowness problem a little bit. But still, at the end of the day, we haven't even seen those guys since the Tag Team Classic. And I've got to deal with the right here, right now. And the right here, right now, to me, still says that the pool is shallower if the heels were to win than if DIY were to retain. So, yeah, just by that logic, and I'm glad to see that I have a little bit more ground to support my position on. I just think the babyfaces have got this, but should be interesting because of TM61 and because of the state of division. This match has very interesting ramifications to me.
Definitely. Yeah. And yeah, that's great if this is actually our first match that we disagree on. And you know what? My thing is I want AOP. Actually, let me rephrase that. I don't have a preference. I hope this is a good match. But either one of these teams, I don't really have a preference for who I want to walk out as champions. What I know, though, is that I feel like if TM61 retains, I don't know how you can, or I'm sorry, TM61, DIY. If DIY retains, I don't know who their next challengers are. It would make a little bit of sense to do them versus Revival again, but then at the same time, I feel like that's kind of as amazing as it was, it really does feel like it reached its logical conclusion.
Right.
And I think that Vince might want Revival on the main roster. But then at the same time, you couldn't really do versus AOP again because AOP worked their way to the top of the tag division, got a shot at the tag titles, and if they lose, they should go to the back of the line. It shouldn't be another we didn't win as decisively as we wanted to, or let me rephrase that, you guys didn't win as decisively as you should have, therefore we should get another title match. No, it should either be you put the titles on the AOP, have them lose. We need new contenders, and I have no clue who that would be. And I don't think it would make any sense for it to be Heavy Machinery because I think those guys are way better as a face team, unless they would want to do DIY versus Sanity, and they could do DIY versus Big Damo and Alexander Wolf, I guess. But even then, I don't know. It's maybe, you know what, they might do a full Sanity over Orlando. It's WrestleMania is in Orlando this year, right?
I believe. Yes, I think. Let me look
Yeah,
it up.
yeah, it is. I just looked it
It
up on
is.
Wikipedia. Yeah. So yeah, if you wanted to at Takeover Orlando, I actually really kind of like this idea. You could do Eric Young versus the world champion. You could do Nikki Cross either as champion or challenging for the championship. You could do the tag team champions versus Alexander and Dane, and you just kind of have like the full stack of Sanity people winning the titles a little bit earlier than I expected, but still the closing image to that show would be amazing.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's an image that you've been kind of calling for a while now, just this all Sanity dominance. And yeah, I'm not opposed
Yeah.
to that at all. But I've really said all I can about the NXT Tag Title match at the risk of being redundant. So if you want to move on, we can.
Okay. Well, I mean, we were just talking about Sanity, so let's talk about the only member left in Sanity that has a match on this show, Nikki Cross, who, along with Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, is challenging Asuka for the NXT Women's Championship.
Yeah, and you know, Ashton, it's funny that we were just talking about Sanity because it really does work seamlessly with what I'm about to say in this match here. First and foremost, I think Asuka's retaining. I have no doubt about that because I still think that the end game here is the big time Asuka versus Ember Moon matchup for the NXT Women's Championship. That said, I don't know if that's going to be the takeover at WrestleMania weekend because here's the thing. NXT Go Home show, I found it very interesting how they were teasing the interaction between Asuka and Nikki Cross with like the stare down and the build up, and then they only went after each other and like isolated Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. So to me, just by that action, just the way that segment was executed, I think that in NXT's mind is saying, okay, Nikki Cross versus Asuka, that's a future money matchup because Nikki Cross is crazy and she's tough and she's got this grit, and Asuka's, well, Asuka. So my thing is, I think Asuka's going to retain, but I also want to tack onto that prediction. I don't think Nikki Cross is going to eat the loss here. I think it's either going to be Billie or, honestly, in my opinion, more likely, Peyton Royce.
I
And
agree.
because here's the thing, if Peyton Royce, and I do take you at your word because you study these things and I hold your opinion in high regard. If Peyton Royce is the better babyface, I think it'd be better for her to take the loss because then maybe Billie Kay could get huffy with her. Like, oh, if you didn't tap out or if you didn't get knocked out, we'd be the NXT Women's Champions. Now, I don't want them to break up that soon. I'm just trying to think the way NXT might be potentially thinking. So I definitely think one of those two is going to take the loss. And then Nikki Cross is protected for a future one-on-one matchup with Asuka. So that's my prediction. Asuka retains, but Nikki Cross stays out of the fire for another day. So,
Yeah. I actually agree with everything you just said. I also have Asuka winning. I also have her pinning Peyton Royce. I also, I'll even add on to that. I mentioned this a couple seconds ago. I actually do have the NXT Takeover Orlando Women's Championship match being Asuka versus Nikki Cross.
right. So,
Because Nikki Cross is going to be in this match. I don't think she's going to get pinned. Peyton Royce is going to probably be the one that needs the pin, and then she and Billie Kay might get into a feud, and that'll leave Nikki Cross as the only person in this match who didn't get pinned, who isn't preoccupied with anything else, who still wants the title. Nikki versus Asuka, and I mean, WrestleMania is only like 2.5 months away. It's really not far away at all. I think it's like 9 or 10 weeks away if you just kind of look at a calendar, because Sunday is the 29th. And then after that, it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks away. Yeah, I was right. It's only 9 weeks away till WrestleMania after Sunday. So obviously then would be Takeover Orlando. And I think that is going to end up being when we get Nikki versus Asuka one-on-one. And I'm not even sure who I would pick to win that because they seem to be really pushing Sanity. And if they do want to do the full Sanity title run, I could easily see them giving Nikki the title there and then maybe have Asuka win it off of her between that show and Brooklyn 3 so that Ember Moon versus Asuka can be the big women's match at TakeOver Brooklyn 3.
yeah, you know what? I completely agree with everything you just said. And can I also just tack on to that? I think NXT TakeOver Orlando has the chance to do something special as far as the women's division goes, because I think you could actually make two compelling feuds here, one being Asuka and Nikki Cross. And then if you want to keep Billie Kay and Peyton Royce credible as a team, have them target Ember Moon, because she just said to Liv Morgan, hey, when the dust settles, I'm going after the NXT Women's Championship. Well, you could have Billie and Peyton not take kindly to that. Plus, there is that slight thread of history. Billie Kay was Ember Moon's very first opponent at a takeover, and she lost that match. So she could be looking to get that bad taste out of her mouth. So you have those three women work together. You have Asuka work with Nikki Cross, and it keeps the pulse of the women's division thriving. So I think NXT TakeOver Orlando for the women could be something special if the cards are played right. I completely agree.
And I think, you know what, I will add, if anybody other than Asuka retains this championship, if anyone wins it off of her, it will be Nikki Cross, so that they can then kind of give Asuka the honor of being the first ever two-time women's champion, have her win the title back at NXT Orlando, and then you can say, like, yeah, Nikki Cross had the title, but then you can kind of keep the Asuka train rolling until they're ready for Ember Moon to challenge her.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely.
So really, I don't think anything's going to shock me in this match on Saturday. It's just going to be a matter of whether Asuka retains or Nikki Cross gets the title off of her. But either way, I still think Peyton Royce is going to be the one to eat the pin.
Yeah, I agree with you there too. So, yeah, complete agreement. So, nothing really more to say there.
That's rare. Up next, though, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Bobby Roode, NXT Championship. I had a really hard time picking this match, but I think I've arrived at my conclusion. Do you want to go first, or should I?
I'll go first because you have a better articulation than I do. You can always keep things more succinct than I do, so let me just get my brain vomit out now. I just want to demonstrate to everybody my two trains of thought and which train that I'm boarding. Because for the longest time, I was prepared to come up here and say that I think Bobby Roode is going to win, because I thought the story that we're going to tell was, you know, Bobby Roode keeps going up and up and up and up and up. Ty Dillinger keeps going down, you know, keeps losing at the big matches, and then somehow they meet in the middle, preferably at TakeOver Brooklyn 3 or wherever. But then you, and I owe this to you here, bringing up that if Andrade beats Roderick Strong, like, that could put him in a position for a title. And I'm like, ooh, Andrade and Shinsuke, that sounds like an amazing feud. And even more realistically than that, getting out of my fandom bubble, if Eric Young beats Ty Dillinger, what's stopping him from going after the title next, since we've been talking so much about Sanity's takeover? So, you know what? While I know that the Bobby Roode Ty Dillinger story is a big story in NXT, it's not one that's going to deflate if Bobby Roode doesn't get the title right away. So I'm actually at the last minute going to say that Shinsuke Nakamura is going to retain the championship, because I actually am really starting to think Eric Young might be his next feud. Either him or Andrade, and I hope it's Andrade, but it's looking more likely that it would be Young. So I'm going to go Nakamura retaining, but this is a last-minute change. I can't emphasize that enough, because I was so ready to say Roode's going to win the title, but I think Nakamura Young is on the books here. Now, I'm curious, because you said you too struggled. What is your final determination of this match?
Well, it's funny because I struggled and I arrived at the same conclusion as you. I also have Dillinger. I also have Nakamura picking up the victory here, retaining his championship. And really, my logic was less who has more momentum, who makes more sense to become champion, and more who has more potential contenders for their championship walking out of this show. And if you give Bobby Roode that championship, that he has a ready-to-go feud after his first defense against Nakamura, assuming it would be successful, would be if they legitimately built Ty Dillinger, because no other baby faces are credible in NXT right now. It's that simple. Like, you have Nakamura at the tippy top, and then the next two most credible baby faces on this roster are Dillinger and Jose.
Yeah, exactly my thought. Like, no way Jose could be in that conversation, but and if he were to get in there, I'd laugh. And not because he's horrible, but what have I always said from day one of TwitWow? You are what you're booked. And they're only now just slowly booking this guy like a winner again. I loved what he did this past Wednesday, but that's a first step on a long, long journey, my man. And Ty Dillinger, to me, like, he's ready to go, and we've been saying that for a while. But yeah, Nakamura is king right now. So I think, you know, when it comes to heels, there's a larger crowd there. I mean, already like Andrade.
Well, it really does. It feels like NXT is just lining up contenders for Nakamura because you've got Eric Young, you've got Cien, you've got Bobby Roode if they want to go back to that well after this. You've got Elias Sampson, and right there, I just named 4 guys off the top of my head, not even really thinking too hard or not even looking at potential returns like Austin Aries or guys that they could build up as top heels like Roderick Strong. That's just 4 guys that right now at this moment could challenge as heels for the world title and be believable to win in one way or another.
Exactly. I completely agree with you. Wow. So I think
you have to keep the title on Nakamura at this point, and not even because it's the best decision from a popularity standpoint or from a talent standpoint or anything, even though it is in both those cases. But the biggest reason you have to keep it on him is because there's just nobody else for Bobby Roode to work with as a babyface.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you. I can't believe the only disagreement you and I had was about the NXT tag team titles. And really, we would have agreed
that,
on
honestly, even the NXT tag title match that we did disagree on, that's probably the match that I care the least about who walks out as champion. Because to me, if DIY retain, it's going to be really annoying because they do this all the time and I hate it. But I'm convinced NXT is just going to continue to push the Authors of Pain and give them another shot at DIY at TakeOver Orlando. Even though it doesn't really make sense, I still feel like just because there really aren't any other contenders unless they go the Sanity route, and that's really the only viable route that I see with DIY retaining. Whereas with the Authors of Pain, you could do DIY, you could do Sanity, because even though Sanity is kind of a heelish stable, if you put them against the Authors of Pain, they will get cheered, and that will have proper psychology. And especially with a pro like Killian Dane, Insanity, he knows how to pop a crowd, he knows how to work a crowd, he knows how to, kind of put that switch on in an instant. The Authors of Pain, if you keep the titles on them and give them a long enough run, the ultimate end game is them versus TM61.
Yes. And I'll tell you what, too, it's funny that our disagreement is only with the NXT Tag Title match, because, again, I wholeheartedly believe that if it wasn't for the wrench of TM61's injury, with Shane Thorne, that we would have been in agreement on that. So I almost don't even want to count that.
I'll also say, John, I'm going to add here, decide to put the NXT Championship on Bobby Roode.
Right.
To me, that means 2 things. First of all, it means Nakamura is getting called up within 3 months. And second of all, it means Hideo is ready to come back, because I think Hideo is kind of that missing top-tier babyface that NXT would need to feud with Bobby Roode for the title.
God, dude, I just want Hideo to have just one healthy long run on NXT where he gets that title. Because, it's really gotten to the point, man.
Forget NXT. I just want Hideo to have one long, healthy run no matter where it is, whether it's in NXT or if they say you're being wasted in NXT and they pull him up to the main roster. I just want to see the dude be given an opportunity. I want somebody to give him the ball and for his body to allow him to run with it.
Because we know he can, and that's why I get so fucking frustrated. But yeah, Hideo's another great name to throw out there. I mean, yeah, I'm looking forward to the show.
You know what? I want to give credit to Draven G in chat. He mentioned Cassius Ohno, who's another name that we haven't mentioned yet that could be comes in and immediately gets contendership. But I do recall the one appearance he did make was just kind of displaying his elbow to Nakamura, not a heel.
Yeah. So all the more reason to say that Nakamura could retain, because that was on, I guess, a set of tapings that we haven't seen yet, probably after this takeover.
Well, I was actually on the set of tapings that led up to this show, but that wasn't a taped segment.
Right. But you know what, though? All the more reason to go with Nakamura in my mind, because that's another person. I actually forgot about Cassius. I don't even mean to be insulting. I love Chris Hero, but yeah, I forgot that he was back in the fold. Holy shit. But yeah.
Well, that's because he hasn't been officially put back in the fold on NXT TV yet. We try really hard to stay true to what NXT canon is, and if it hasn't been shown on NXT TV or a takeover, it hasn't happened yet.
Right, right. I will say though, when we look at this show, because it's funny, when we did Royal Rumble preview predictions, I never did do what I like to do on those videos and give my my anticipation for the show. Which, by the way, I'd say my anticipation for Rumble's about a 9, and I'd give Takeover. You know what? I'd give Takeover the same score. I think this looks like a really solid card. Again, the undercard I'm loving, especially again Roderick Strong versus Andrade. I think those two could really do something wonderful together. And when you look at the ramifications of the championship matches, that's definitely alluring to me. So I think we're in for 2 really fun shows this weekend. I'm excited.
Yeah, my anticipation for Rumble's at about an 8. The Rumble match, I'd say I'm at like a 9.5, but then the rest of the show drags that score down because I'm really not excited for any other matches on the show other than Cena AJ.
Right.
And even that, like, I'm dreading the idea of Cena beating AJ. So even that's like, like an 8 out of 10 instead of the 10 out of 10 it should be. But then, yeah, I would say for NXT, I'm at like a 7.5 or so.
And that's fair. That's fair. Will this be the best takeover card? I don't think even close, if I'm being honest. But I do think it'll be a fun one that'll just be like, you know what? It's a good
Got to be better than some of the NXT takeovers we've had over the last like 5 quarters. So what, like 15 months? Because I feel like, Takeover Respect was kind of a dud. It had one great match on it, and that was it. And then you really, like, London had a bunch of great matches with bad decisions. And just this past year, like, Brooklyn 2 was good but not great, and good but not great. Like, I feel like the quality of Takeover specials has declined since the first Brooklyn, actually.
Right.
So
we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting. This is probably the first time ever that I'm actually more anticipating the WWE pay-per-view happening after the takeover than the takeover itself.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Because I remember those
of one match.
Yeah. Wow. That's nuts. But yeah, wrestling weekend's looking pretty sweet. And I've got nothing more to say about this card. So if you want to take us home, we can go home.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to get your questions in for Q&A coming up tomorrow. I can't believe it's here already. This is such a stacked week and weekend. Q&A questions, you can submit up to 3, and you can ask them to one or both of us of your choosing. If you would like to support TwitWow, go to patreon.com/TwitWow and donate. And if you would like to get something in return for your money and not just donate to support the show for no real, nothing in return, then you can check out our pricing on our Patreon requests, and you can request that we review or live react, or both review and live react to a show of your choosing. And if you would also like to support the show with, again, getting something physical in return, you can check out teespring.com/stores/TwitWow, and you can check out the selection of t-shirts that we have. Right now, we have 7 different shirts, one of which with a male and female variety. And one of the 7 shirts actually is also able to be put on a mug or a sticker. So if you don't want to spend $20-something on a t-shirt, you can buy a $15 mug or a $6 sticker, and a lot of what you're buying will be benefiting us and helping us out and supporting us, and we appreciate all of it. So those are the ways to support us. If you want to know what we're doing, kind of keep updated on the TwitWow duo, John and myself, you can follow us on Twitter, like our Facebook, check out our subreddit, or subscribe to the channel. And if you do subscribe to the channel, make sure to click the little bell icon and notify me of all activity on this channel so that you get notifications of when we go live, or after we're done live, when our video is officially done being processed. For Twitter, I'm at Apond404. That's at APOND404. John is at JOHN. That's John with an H _TwitWow. Facebook.com/TwitWow. TwitWow.reddit.com. And I believe that is everything. So last time I want to plug this, make sure to get questions in for Q&A. We will be going live with Q&A tomorrow night at 8 p.m. And we will see everyone at that. I will make sure to tweet out some reminders to people on that do follow us on Twitter so that they're ready and so that they know that we are going to be going live sometime soon. And we will see you then, guys. Stay tuned.